When I'm a speaker, I'm the sage on the stage. When I'm a coach, I'm the guide by their side. Your job is not to just show up and throw up.
Welcome to Fry Your Chickens, the podcast about facing fears, negativities, and self-doubts that can hold us back. Or as I like to call them, chickens. Get ready because it's time to tell those chickens that are holding you back to shut the cluck up. We will learn how real people did exactly that. I'm your host, Phil Barth. Let's get ready to fry. My guest today is Patrick Donadio. Patrick is a fellow speaker. He's also a coach, friend of mine from National Speakers Association. He is going to tell us how to communicate with impact. And if you're watching the visual right now, you can see right over his left shoulder, Communicating with Impact. That's your book. Patrick, welcome to the Fry Your Chickens podcast.
Hello, Phil. Great to see you, my friend.
Let's just dive right in. What do you say?
Sure.
Let's just go for it. All right. So let's talk first off. I'm fascinated by your background and everything, but first off, let's just get right into it. Since you are a speaker and a coach, what do a lot of speakers miss because they're not thinking like coaches?
Yeah, that's a great question, Phil, because I started out as a speaker. I did most of my first, half of my years in this business as speaking and training. Then when I became a coach, I realized there are a lot of good skill sets that a coach has that make you even a better speaker. So I got this little phrase I use all the time. When I'm a speaker, I'm the sage on the stage. When I'm a coach, I'm the guide by their side. So the biggest difference between speaking and coaching is as a speaker or a trainer, you're there to solve the problem, give them the answers. As a coach, you're there to help them think. And I think a lot of speakers forget that, your job is not to just show up and throw up. I mean, your job is to help people get engaged and be present and be a part of the presentation. So the idea of, focusing on what do I want to say should be shifted to what do I want or need people to hear that will help them change or solve their problem. So I think in the old days, it was okay to just show up and throw up. I mean, in the old days, you had a speaker who would have one speech and they just find a new audience, right? But today's world is so different. So I think if you do a lot of presentations, whether it be as a paid professional or even inside your organization, don't just think about what you're going to craft and what the words are, but how do you get people to think and to be involved, engaged?
So I don't know if you know Ray Engen, but Ray has been on the podcast and he has a knack for coming up with clever sayings, but you have set the record with three great sayings in that short amount of time. Be the sage on the stage, the guide by their side, and my personal favorite, don't show up and throw up.
Yeah. Well, Phil, I do media training and it's always good to have sound bites, and those are what I call sound bites.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, right, as speakers, we want to be remembered. I guarantee you, if you tell people you can't show up and throw up, they will remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you don't do that before lunch. Yeah.
Or while on the stage.
Yeah, right.
The lunch was bad, and so I didn't take my own advice. What are you gonna do?
I love it. Yeah. And by the way, for you're listening right now, you might want to grab a pen or a paper, or not if you're driving, but I think you're going to get a lot of good nuggets from Phil and I. So this is just the beginning. So, buckle up.
Absolutely. It is the most informative podcast that features rubber chickens that I know of.
That's exactly right.
In the greater Cincinnati area.
Yeah.
All right. Your signature book and your keynote is Communicating with Impact.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through and walk the audience through Communicating with Impact and the impact framework?
Yeah. Happy to do that, Phil. And one thing I just like to remind everybody is, we always heard the phrase, oh, communication, that's a soft skill. We don't want to focus on the soft skills. Well, I think more and more communication isn't really a soft skill anymore. In fact, with AI, communication is even more important. So what I've tried to do is to help my clients come up with a systematic way to craft and deliver an important message or communication. And over my years of coaching and speaking, I've identified 6 key elements that make for an impactful communication, and that's what the impact process is. It happens to be an acronym. I know people don't like acronyms, but I've worked really hard to not just make the words fit the acronym, but them to be really critical. So I'll give them to you very quickly, and if you like, Phil, we can even put in the show notes like a PDF. I got a one-page overview if you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right. So,
100%.
but let me jump in there, and then again, we can talk about any of these pieces. But the first step to having a great communication and making an impact is having a good intention. So every communication starts with a thought, right? Think before you speak. And the clearer the intention, the more powerful the communication. So we talk a lot about how to do that, how to craft a great intention. The M is the message and the method. So once you know the intention, right, what's the best method for that intention? Like if I'm going to give feedback as a leader, I don't want to necessarily do it in a text, right? I mean, it'd be good to do it in person. So maybe the method might be in person or a phone call. So the M is the method to achieve the intention. The M is the message, right? So, and as we all know, Phil, every good communication should have an opening, a body, and a closing, right? So, but you want to craft your message again to go back to achieve the intention. Everything comes back to the intention. The P is the person. We're all different. So don't assume you just can pick one message and it's going to work everywhere. So think about the receiver. If it's one-on-one, are they introverted, extroverted? Are they analytical? Are they relational? Adjust your message. If it's an audience, are they like a technical group? Again, an audience is a little bit harder, but you still want to think about the audience. So the P is personalize the message. So I am planning is the first half of the process. And now, assuming you got a decent message, then you want to think about how do you bring it to life? How do you activate it? So the A is activation. So we talk a lot about active engagement. I shared the Gallup studies. They've been tracking engagement for the last 10 years. And just FYI, in the general population in the U.S., in most organizations, about a third of their employees are engaged. It's really low.
Yeah.
And so it's an important component. So activation in terms of engagement. And then the big issue for many people, especially speakers, is active listening, right? So it's not just about talking. So when I'm doing the workshops and seminars and keynotes, Phil, I always ask my audience, and I've been doing this for 2 decades, how many of you have had a formal 30, 60-minute listening skills training? Less than 10% of the audience raises their hand. So active listening, active engagement. The C is clarify. How do you make sure the message you sent is the same message? So if you've done a really good job, yet the person gets the message that's different than what you intended, it doesn't work. So you always got to check for understanding. And I talk a lot about different tools for that. And then the T, and Phil, just a side note, when I first come up with the process, the T was thank you. And I sent the book out to some of my coaching friends, and they went, "Oh my gosh, Donadio, that's horrible. Thank you." And they came back, and I was so glad I got feedback. And they said, "No, T is transform."
Okay.
And to me, I loved it. And so the transformation step, the last step, is how do you transform your words and your actions into the intention that you set? So again, everything comes back to the intention. Pretty simple idea, but I think a lot of people just don't take the time to think about these key components. And by the way, in the transformation step, I do talk about 2 types of transformations, internal and external. We all think about external transformations like have a deadline or follow up. But the internal transformation part, which comes really from my coaches training, is what's going to get in the way of the receiver or yourself when you think about their mindsets or their beliefs about what's supposed to happen. So there you go. That's the full day workshop in probably 2 minutes. I know we
Wow.
covered a lot there. But if you can remember the word impact and remember the 6 steps, you start at least having an idea what to do when you want to craft a powerful message.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I'm sitting here taking notes at the same time going, "Oh, I want to ask him about this. Oh, I want to ask him about that. Oh, I want to ask him." So well done, because now I've got more questions than I started with. I think the first thing I wanted to touch on was the person.
Yeah,
That is such an important, and it's not just in speaking. It's
right.
the audience that you're dealing with. So if I show up to an event of people that have zero sense of humor and I start throwing rubber chickens, I kind of miss the target of the person. Now,
Yeah,
I will tell you that I make sure that the people like the rubber chickens before I ever sign the contract for the
right.
event.
Yeah,
It's kind of like Nolan Ryan without the fastball if I can't go without the chicken.
yeah,
But it's true. And so you have to tailor your message for the audience, or let them know that somebody, and this is as a speaker, let them know somebody else might be a better fit.
exactly.
As an employee, you don't always have that option. Certainly if you're in sales, You don't have that option. You have to tailor it to that person. Are they an introvert, extrovert? All those things you said. Just
Right.
love that.
Yeah.
And the other thing I love, and somewhere along the line you said, "Oh, it's in the transformation. Did it happen?" I think this is where it is. Right. If you think you said it, but if they heard something else, it's your fault. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
you got to check in.
Yeah, that's the clarification step. And I tell people, look, the meaning of the message doesn't come from the sender. It comes from the receiver. We think we're clear, but you know what? It doesn't matter how clear you are if the person gets a different perspective, which some studies show, 70% of your message is screened by the receiver, called selective perception. So
Hmm.
you really need to make sure you check for understanding.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Love
Absolutely.
it.
So critical. Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I, now let's talk a little bit about activate.
Yeah.
So if you're working with a team, how do you activate them to
Yeah.
help them think differently about a problem?
Yeah, well, I think we just constantly need to be aware that we live in a society where everybody's so freaking impatient, right? Everybody's impatient. The average attention span, and again, I don't want to say it's like a goldfish, but the idea is it's very short. So, as a leader, as a presenter, as a communicator, you have to constantly think if I don't get them connected and tuned in, they're going to tune out. So, I like to think about engagement in a 3D way, like a 3D experience. If you've been to a 3D movie, you put those glasses on, right? So it's you engage people physically, mentally, and emotionally. You don't do it all at the same time. But if you just get up there and give a book report, yeah, you might engage them a little bit, but you got to have questions. You need to bring in an example, a story. Let's go back to the person. If the person's very analytical, they're like from Missouri, the show me state. I mean, they
Hmm.
want data. If they're very relational and you put up a big, graph and a grid, they're gonna tune out. They need a story or an example. So engagement also needs to be tailored to the receiver, again, one-on-one or with the group. So I think a lot of times, again, going back to we talked about the shift from a speaker to a coach, right? Is that early on we think about me, it's about me. I got great content. I can't wait to tell them all this. But engagement really talks about, like you said, Phil, is to find out who's in the audience. And my favorite question when you do audience analysis is this question: what are your top two or three challenges you'd like me to focus on when you think about my topic? Right. In my case, communication skills. In your case, frying your chickens.
Yeah. Yeah. That is really powerful, especially in a workshop, to say, okay, what is the one thing you want in this workshop, and get it written down, and then you
Yeah.
can check out. Yeah, you can't necessarily, if you got a keynote in front of 200 people, you don't have the time to get 200 people involved.
Yeah.
But
But you could ask the meeting planner.
that's
You could
exactly
ask
it.
the
Yeah.
meeting planner, listen, I'd love to come in, but while I'm in there, tell me about your audience. What would you say are the top two things you want me to help them with as a result of them listening to me? So yeah,
Yes.
you can not necessarily ask the group, but your meeting planner, to me, you have two, in my opinion, we're talking about speaking now. You
Right.
have two audiences. You have the meeting planner or the meeting professional. This is a term we should use these days, Phil. I want to make sure I'm clear now. And then
Absolutely.
you have the audience, right? So you always want to make sure you're there to please both.
Yeah. Yeah. I find if it's a closed event, you can talk with a couple people ahead of time. Hey, what does success look like?
Yep.
Otherwise, large event, it's meeting planner. A lot of times when I do a seminar, be it on
Yeah.
stress management or AI, then it's like, okay, when we get in the room, we're going to be here for 3, 4, 6 hours. What do you want out of this? What
Right.
y'all paid money for this? What constitutes success?
Yeah.
And and so
And,
yeah,
and real quick about engagement, the first step of engaging in the audience is you have to be engaged. So I know early on, Phil, when I first started speaking, I would do my presentation. I get off the stage and I couldn't remember. I don't remember what I did. It was like I had an out of body experience. Like, well, gee, I hope that went well because I was nervous. I was anxious. I wasn't present. And so if you're not present, they're not going to connect with you. And I know, Phil, you're a big reps guy. About get your reps in. And this is the way you get it. Like you only get more comfortable the more you do it. So if you want to really be engaging, you have to be present because you're not going to know if you're not present if the audience is with you, and you got to flex on the fly.
absolutely, absolutely. I remember early on, I was at the Toastmasters convention in the finals of the World Championship, And I was, the whole time I was giving that speech, all I could think was, what's the next move I have to make? What's the next gesture? What do I turn left or right at this
Right.
point? And so, spoiler alert, I didn't win. So
Spoiler alert.
not really.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the video from the 2011 World Championship Public Speaking, I was in the top 8, and that's
Yeah.
only because one of the 9 got disqualified for time.
Well,
Okay.
that's still an accomplishment though, Phil, but I hear you. You're right on target.
Yeah.
If you would do it today, you'd be better at it because you are more comfortable, you have a lot more experience, and all these things are so critical.
Yeah. And it's about putting in the reps. It
Yeah.
is absolutely about putting in the reps because for the longest time, my wife would say, when you're on stage, you're using the speaker voice.
Uh-huh.
It was higher, it was tighter, it was all of those things. And it was when it became putting in the reps.
Right.
And I got feedback this year from an event, and she said, "You just did such a good job because you were there, you were personable, you weren't worried about the polish on every single word,
Right.
and then missed the point of what we wanted." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, it only took 20 years,
Overnight success.
overnight success in 2 decades,
Yeah.
baby." Well, probably actually a quarter of a century, which makes it
Yeah.
sound even worse, doesn't it? All right. I'm enjoying this a lot, by the way.
Yeah. Well, me too, my friend.
So, Patrick, you and I have been doing this for a while, since we were probably, really, really young, if we've got this many years in.
Right.
What is one thing, or you can do more than one thing,
Yeah.
that has changed about how you speak over the years?
Yeah. Well, I think all of us, whether you're a leader or a speaker, we all need to take a moment to step back and learn about what we've done differently, right? Because we do grow, we do change, and a lot of that comes from experience, and it comes from, taking the conscious effort to debrief. So for me, I'm going to go from two sides, one from on the platform and one from the business side, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So on the platform, I think I've moved from what I call focused on the message, right? Focused on creating and delivering content to focusing on transformation, to focusing on facilitating change. So for me, the biggest transition, and I think it's a kind of a natural transition, both that's happened with our audiences, is that people are focused on activities, results, not activities. So for me, yeah, I'm still about having great content, but I'm also about making sure I'm giving people some value that can help them move forward and do something different. So to me, again, it's about being a better communicator. So my goal is that people walk away with one or two things that they can pick up from our time together to be a more effective communicator. And by the way, if you're listening right now, that's the same goal today on our podcast, right? Pick up one or two things that you hear from Phil and I that are going to make you a more effective, in this case, communicator. So that's my biggest shift on the platform, move from message to transformation. In the business side, the biggest thing I learned over the years, Phil, is to move from what I call next mentality to deep and narrow. So it was a big mindset shift. So, early on, I was like, oh, I got a speech. Next, I got a speech. Next, oh, I want to do 100 speeches a year. Yay. And then I realized to me, I'm leaving a lot of value on the table. When I get to know a client really well, and I just do one thing for them, then they got to hire somebody else who's got to also train them to learn their issues and their technique. So I've really focused on, instead of doing a next mentality, and it's not true with every client, but I try to really go deep and narrow. So when I get an engagement, I want to ask lots of questions. I want to know what else I can do for them. Sometimes, I've been very blessed, Phil. Sometimes I've actually done a national conference. I was their keynoter 3 times. They brought me back, not every year, but because I added value, they were interested in bringing me back. I've found that I've had clients for 5 to 10 years. I had one client for almost 10 years where I did a lot of coaching and training inside this big Fortune 500 company. And my old mindset would have been, oh, I got that client. Let me go to the next one, as opposed to, what can I do for this client? How can I continue to add value? So on the business side, I've moved from what I call next to deep and narrow.
I think that's brilliant. Deep and narrow. Deep and narrow is when you're providing more value for them. And I see people, not only the next mentality, it's like, oh, you've got an event, I'll speak at it.
Yeah.
What's it about? What do you want me to speak on? And it's like, no. You have to hone and say, this is how I'm going to help you.
Right.
Now and next. You gotta have that narrow band. And if the conference is about something that isn't in your wheelhouse, Let somebody else do it.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
yourself a favor, do the organizer a favor, and pass it on to somebody who can handle it. It's in their wheelhouse.
Yeah. And you know what? They appreciate that and they're going to remember you. So when the next topic comes up, they're going to go, I really appreciate that Phil was honest with me. Yeah.
Yep. And and it's tough when it's in some place like, Key West or something like
Yeah,
that.
I know. Yeah, but we've
Oh,
all
but
had we all have those horror stories when we should have said no and we said
right.
yes. So
Yeah.
we don't
Oh,
need to
but it's
go there.
cold
But
and it's warm down there. Well, is that what you're speaking on? The weather? No. Okay. All right, let me ask you this. We talk a lot about chickens on here.
yes.
Small chickens, and of course, the legendary big chicken, the red rooster of regret. There he is. If you're
Yeah,
on the
if you're
video
not
like this,
looking on video, that's a big chicken.
yeah. If you're not on video, just Google Phil Barth Red Rooster of Regret. It's out there a lot. I'm
Yeah.
telling you. So speaking of chickens, what is the biggest communication chicken that holds leadership teams back?
The biggest communication chicken, I think, in general, whether it's on stage or in front of a group or with your team, is clarification. We all make that assumption that we think we're being very clear. So, and if I had to pick a second, I just shouldn't, but if I had to pick a
No,
second, it'd be
do.
it'd be intention, right? So these two are so important. But clarification, so many times, and we've seen this how many times. I've had clients tell me horror stories about an email they sent out. And by the way, email is linear communication. There's no feedback. So when you send an email, the total meaning of the message comes from the receiver. And so when you're communicating, you don't check for understanding, people misinterpret. Just a quick example, Phil. I mean, I do coach a lot of folks on becoming better presenters, and I had one person that sent me a video that I was coaching in the middle of the process, and they sent me a video. They were working on something, and I sent back an email that says, "Wow, really nice job." And the guy wrote back, "What do you mean nice? I worked really hard on that." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess I should have said super duper extra fragilistic job." I mean, I thought I was giving a compliment, and there they didn't think that was complimentary enough, right? So just a quick example about how the meaning of the message comes from the receiver. So we always got to check for understanding.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And you also said impact is another one.
The
No,
intention.
intention.
Yeah.
I'm reading. I'm reading the word behind you, Patrick.
It's subliminally. I'm really selling you
you,
subconsciously. Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I know. It's
yeah.
just
But intention again, like it's the simplest step in the process, right? You only get, I mean, if you're listening right now and you don't take 30 seconds to think before you speak, to think before you start writing, you're going to see a big impact. If you just spend 30 seconds saying, "Now, before I send this email, let me ask myself a couple questions." And let's go back to intention for one moment, Phil. Intention's not about the what, it's about the why. It's not about what do I want to say in the email. It's like, why am I sending this email? Why am I having this meeting with this employee? Why am I on this podcast today? Right. So many people just jump into the what, but you got to focus on the why.
that's really, really good. All right. So now, if you're familiar with the Fry Your Chickens podcast,
I
we
am.
have a question that we ask all of our guests. This is season 2 of Fry Your Chickens. We have not yet updated. We tweak it along the way, but
Yeah. Yeah.
this is one of those critical questions, philosophical questions that really doesn't change over the course of our lifetimes. It's one of those. And the question is this: if you had to fight one bear-sized chicken or 100 chicken-sized bears, which would you choose and why?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good question because I could go either way, but I think if I think about my impact process in communicating, I first of all, I'd like to know if I get any information. Are these just cute, cuddly bears, or are they kind of a coordinated team? Because that would make an impact.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But let's assume that they're just a bunch of cute, cuddly bears, 100 cute, cuddly bears. I would probably go for the 100 cute, cuddly bears because I think for me, it's easier for me to manage these small individuals, and collectively they might have more power. But I think if I had to fight a huge bear-sized chicken, they would overpower me, and there's no way that I could actually ever win that fight. And I think so. I got to go with the 100 cute cuddly bears, the bear-sized chickens
Okay.
or chicken-sized bears.
Got 100 bear-sized chickens are just I'm done.
No, no, 100
Chicken-sized bears, absolutely.
chicken-sized bears. Yeah,
Well,
sorry.
yes, absolutely, and there's that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate the fact that you had a follow-up question. There have been a couple guests that had follow-up questions, as in,
Okay.
do I get a weapon? Because that changes things. Or in your case, are they cuddly bears? Because little cuddly teddy bears, sure.
Yeah.
And probably we
Yeah.
could probably have a little teddy bear party, teddy bear picnic. That was the book.
Okay.
Okay, and now we have gotten that important question out of the way. It is time to think on our feet. It is time for us to answer the secret Chat GPT questions. Now, what I have done is I have fed the information about Patrick from LinkedIn and from your website, Patrick, and I have asked Chat GPT to generate 3 questions specifically for you. This
Okay.
is both an exercise rather in thinking on your feet, as well as what can go wrong with artificial intelligence. Always a fun thing. So, without any further ado, let's bring in. oh, with a little bit of ado, apparently. Hello, Maple. Are you there?
Absolutely. I'm here, ready to jump in and chat about whatever you need. Let me know what's on your mind.
Okay, so we are in the middle of the Fry Your Chickens podcast with special guest Patrick Donadio. You have 3 questions ready to go. True?
Absolutely true. I've got those 3 questions all set and waiting in the wings for when you say go. Just let me know when you want to dive in and we'll roll right into them.
Okay, now remember, we do them one at a time, so please tell us the first question.
Absolutely. Let's do it one at a time. So, your first question for Patrick is, what do you think most speakers overlook when it comes to really connecting with their audience on a deeper level? And we'll take it from there.
Okay. So what is it that most speakers overlook when it comes to really connecting? And again, I think we talked about that a little bit on our podcast, Phil, but I would say the biggest thing is that speakers forget to engage the audience physically, mentally, and emotionally. So you can do one, but if you can do all three, it's so much better. So people come today, and I tell a lot of my coaching clients, Phil, you're not having a presentation, you're creating an experience. And
Yep,
people want to be a part of an experience. So to me, that's the thing. You want to make sure you engage them physically, mentally, and emotionally.
love that. I would have said something very similar. Catch them right out the gate. You talked about maybe not, we have goldfish uh, attention spans.
Right.
I asked a goldfish and it got offended at me that it thought that I thought humans were as good as it. So no, it's true. You need to engage them, and people can say, well, speakers can say, and I've heard them say, well, I shouldn't need to make an
Yeah.
experience. I've heard pastors say this too, and it's like, dude, it's not up to you. It's the audience, and
Right.
that's the world we live in today. And I'm glad to hear you say that. We got to make it an experience to capture them. It's all
Right.
about making their life better, and if they want an experience, hopefully it includes rubber chickens.
I agree. Yeah.
All right. Okay, Maple, he aced that question. Let's go on to the next one.
All right, let's roll on to the next one. So, your second question for Patrick is, what's one piece of advice you wish more speakers would take to heart about how to communicate impactfully? And we'll just keep going from there.
One piece of advice that all speakers would like to take about how to communicate impactfully. Uh, and by the way, Phil, I'm going to give the audience a little secret. That's my stall technique I use when I teach media training. Is you can repeat the question to give you some time to think of the answer. So we're pulling back the curtain, Phil. I'm doing
I
both.
love it.
I'm I'm giving you the answer, but I'm teaching the audience how to handle a question when you don't know the answer. It's called the repeat the question technique.
Very nice.
So I think a lot of speakers and a lot of leaders don't spend the time to think before they speak. It again, it doesn't take a lot of time. It takes 60 to 30 seconds. And so think about the why and ask yourself a couple quick questions. Why am I having this conversation with this person? Why now? And then you can ask a what question. What would I like to have happen as a result of this conversation? So if you just took 30 seconds and asked a couple quick questions like that, I don't care who you are, you can't help but be a more impactful communicator.
I have I have absolutely nothing I can add to that. That is an excellent answer. So let's go on to number
I
three.
can't wait for Maple's last question.
Okay, Maple, he's 2 for 2. What is the third question?
Fantastic. All right, let's hit him with the third one. The third question is, which part of your impact framework do you find turns into a chicken for people most often? Basically, the one that people tend to avoid or struggle with the most. And there we go. That's your third question.
Okay,
Yeah.
before you answer that, I'll give you a little chance to stall. She's kind of rephrasing the questions that we put into her to
Ah,
do this. So, but we've covered it, but we could also, it's up to you
yeah.
as the guest. You can answer that, or we can just say, look, Maple, give us a question about chickens and communication.
Yeah, let's ask her for that. I'm
All
open to
right.
that. Let's see what she pops up with.
Okay, so we kind of covered that already on the podcast, that last question that you asked, Maple. So I want you to come up with something, but it's got to be a little more off the wall. It should involve rubber chickens or something of the like. Are you ready with that?
Oh, absolutely. I can definitely add a little off the wall rubber chicken flair to this. So let's do this for your next question. Ask Patrick if you had to pick one piece of advice from your impact framework and deliver it while holding a rubber chicken. Which part would it be and why? That way we get a little chicken themed fun in there.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
So I'm holding a rubber chicken and I have to give one piece of advice about my impact process that goes along with the chicken.
Twists or anything else, just let me know.
Okay, why did I say thank you to her before I muted it? Because then she had to talk. Okay, so
Yeah.
she
Yeah,
gave you a little bit of time, but yes,
Yeah.
one of your IMP ACT has to be done with a rubber chicken.
Yeah. And by the way, Phil, I think Maple is an extrovert. I just wanted to point that out.
She absolutely is. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm holding, if you're not able to see me, I'm holding a rubber chicken. And when I think about chicken, I think about the letter C. And so I think about, again, the word clarify. So to me, clarify is, let's call it a vulnerable chicken, right? Because sometimes we don't want to admit that maybe we weren't really good at communicating, right? But I think if you don't clarify, you run the risk that the meaning of the message is going to be received differently. And if that's the case, you really haven't communicated. So I don't know if you ever had a vulnerable chicken, but that's the chicken I'm holding right now, the Clarify vulnerable chicken.
Vulnerable Valerie. We now have one. And that's really good. See, for
Yeah.
clarify, you answered it right away. I'm glad you didn't balk at that.
But Yeah, well, I was a little chicken about doing this whole segment. It was kind of scary for me.
Very nice. Patrick, this has been incredible. Any closing words of wisdom before we find out how we can reach you?
Yeah. Well, listen, Phil, I love hanging out with you. You're a fun guy. I don't mean a mushroom. I just mean a person that's a pleasure to work with. I'm on a metaphor roll. Sorry. But if you're listening today, I hope you've had some fun with us, right? Because I think learning is better when it's fun. And I hope you got a couple ideas that, you can put into practice. Remember, you spend about 80% of your waking day in some form of communication. It's very important. And it's to be more important because there's probably a lot of folks know, AI. I know you had guests on talking about AI. AI is becoming more prevalent. And I just put a post on LinkedIn today, Phil, just about this same topic about high touch versus high tech. So the whole idea of high touch is becoming even more critical because high tech is really moving to the forefront. So become a better communicator, take some time to learn some better skills, and I hope you can use some of the things that Phil and I talked about. And if you do, by the way, Phil, you're going to make a greater impact.
Aha! Very good. Patrick, where can we find you online?
Yeah. LinkedIn's great. Just look for Patrick Donadio on LinkedIn. My website is another good place to go. It's simple. It's patrickdonadio.com. Donadio. And if you go to the resources page, I got a lot of free articles and some other podcasts you want to take a listen to after you listen again to this one, because I know there's a lot of great stuff here. And then, of course, I'll put a couple things in the liner notes if people want to get the impact model, the 6 steps again. But yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody who wants to. And Phil, just a fun time being with you. I really appreciate you doing your work. And by the way, for those listening, you know, I just want to give Phil a big compliment because I've seen Phil and he's really grown so much in the last couple years, and he's just amazing. And I'm excited for you, Phil, to see what you've done in the short amount of time you've moved into this field of professional speaking. And I know you're going to be making even a bigger impact in the future. So good luck to you, my friend, and to all those listeners. Keep listening because you got some great wisdom when you want to learn how to fry your chickens.
Thank you. I have grown a lot in the last year, and that's why I'm on a diet. But
Ba-dum-bum.
Patrick, thanks again. If you're listening to this and you need to be able to communicate with more impact, if you need a sage from the stage or a guide by your side, go see patrickdonadio.com. Until next time, everybody, keep frying. Hey, it's Phil. Like today's show? Well, you'll clucking love my Fry Your Chickens newsletter on LinkedIn and Substack. Links are in the notes.